America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Sorry, Megan, you're no Charlie. Try as you might. You're just not. But that for another day. I'm working on something. Before we get to that, our friends at Gravian put together a montage of Democrats trashing ICE. And you say words do have consequences, except if you're Jimmy Kimmel. But for most people, they do. You're going to hear from Dan Goldman, who is a complete sleazeball lowlife. Gavin Newsom, a complete sleazeball lowlife. J.B. Pritzker, sleazeball lowlife. Hakeem Jeffries, sleazeball lowlife. Tim Waltz, sleazeball lowlife. And then the FBI special agent in charge, who's having to deal with the aftermath here of that shooting in Dallas. And I guarantee you, these Democrats are not going to change. The Democrats, the party of slavery and segregation, the party of eugenics and Jim Crow, the party of Marxism and Islamism. That's right, the party of the Klan, the party of lynching. It's a very violent party. Very violent party. The one thing they can agree on is they hate the United States of America. Let's take a listen. Cut 10, go.
This is Gestapo-like behavior. Plainclothes officers wearing masks are terrorizing immigrants.
The ICE issue is alarming beyond words. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process. We're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here. Wake up. Dangers.
Hold on. Have you noticed something about Border Patrol agents and ICE agents, ladies and gentlemen? Not all, of course, but vast numbers of them are brown. Vast numbers of them are bilingual. Vast numbers of them are Hispanic. Have you noticed that? They come on TV and they speak about the need for law enforcement, the need for deporting illegal aliens and criminals and so forth. Have you noticed that? And yet here we have this white guy with all this grease in his hair, with a turkey neck, going on and on. Can't even provide water to the people of California. Can't even ensure that these homes will be rebuilt. Him, that guy. Go ahead.
in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. They're taking people off the streets and sending them away. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is not the 1930s, and every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye. Just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. We need to make sure that there's a firewall that they have to come through before they get to them.
Early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack.
And so you can see, ladies and gentlemen, and I write about this in Chapter 4 of On Power. This is called agitprop. Lenin wrote about it in 1902. Remember Lenin? He led the revolution, the Russian Revolution in 1917. They took over the country. Remember him? Yeah, Putin was part of the KGB. The Putinoids with their hemorrhoids, they still love all this. But nonetheless, the rest of us, normal Americans. Agitprop is the combination of agitating physical action with propaganda. Agitprop. They actually had a significant department after the Russian Revolution in Russia to promote agitprop, the manipulation of people, the manipulation of their minds, thought control, to create anger, fury, in order to control what the people do and don't do. That's exactly what's going on here. I call them American Marxists, as you know, for a reason. And this is what they are. They're not Marxists per se, they're American Marxists, a customized form. I wrote an entire book on this, but that's who they are. That's what they are. Now, when you talk like this, you intend to be heard. Right, Mr. Producer? They have these press conferences or they go on these talk shows. They're saying these things because they want to be heard, right? They're not saying these things because they don't want to be heard. They're saying these things because they want to have an impact. They want to be heard. They want to have an impact on as many people as possible. And they have. The violence is everywhere. The open borders, the violence is everywhere. They're having their impact. So I want to give them credit for their impact. Right? But they don't want to take any credit. They fall back on guns. They light the fuse. They push the agenda. And then when somebody is shot and murdered, they talk about guns. You know, it's interesting about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Many things, of course, are appalling, but I didn't hear them talk much about gun control. Did you, Rich? No. I didn't hear them talk much at all, except for the likes of Jimmy Kimmel, who's now a free speech icon, because he burped out of his ass a stupid comment. Now he's a free speech icon. I'm going to address this Saturday. I've been working on this. I'm going to address this Saturday in a way nobody else has on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Please don't miss it. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Set your DVR. We have Brandon Tatum, wonderful guy who doesn't get enough TV time, which is the way I felt about Charlie Kirk when I brought him on Fox. Nobody was bringing him on Fox. I brought him on Fox. And thank goodness I did. I'm for the better. The whole country's for the better as a result. And I don't think Tatum gets enough time. And I also bring on Douglas Murray, who is fantastic. He doesn't get enough time either. But they will now. I'll make sure of it. And there's going to be others. I'm telling you now, there's other individuals who are not given the spotlight that they deserve. It's the same old, same old. I've had it. I've used my radio program to help create a farm team. And I use my Fox program to help create a farm team. I'm going to expand this. I'm going to expand it. America's governor, and he is. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. And he doesn't hang around with neo-Nazis and grifters and isolations. And that would be Ron DeSantis. He was at an event today about these attacks on ICE and other law enforcement. Here's what he said. Cut 11, go.
We are very clear. We are seeing an alarming increase in attacks and rhetoric against law enforcement, in this case, federal law enforcement, Department of Homeland Security and ICE. In Florida, we have zero tolerance for attacks on law enforcement. This is not Portland. You will be held accountable if you try that. These are folks that are doing their jobs. They have been given duties to be able to enforce the laws that are on the books in this country, and they are doing that. And I know there's a lot of politicians out there that are trying to gin up hatred and opposition for what they're doing. That is not going to fly in the state of Florida. So we stand with, of course, our local and state law enforcement, but yes, our federal partners who are working very hard to uphold the rule of law. And we saw a shooting yesterday in Texas. And we see an alarming rise in rhetoric and actions targeting these folks. And so in Florida, we have zero tolerance. You're not going to want to try that here in the Sunshine State.
You know, somebody who's a resident of Florida, I love this guy. What he does is unequivocally solid, pro-American, conservative, fiscally, law enforcement. Why, it doesn't matter. He was a great Congress. He'd make a great president. Ron DeSantis. He also debated, you might recall, Newsom and mopped the floor with him. There's a lot of potential, really solid candidates for president, and they're going to have to earn it. And they're going to have to answer questions. If they won't come on this program, not because of my ego, because there's millions and millions of you, we will oppose them. President Trump came on this program. He's come on this program many times. Don't be afraid. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. God, do the media hate Netanyahu the way they hate Trump, by the way. They love the quislings who've surrendered their countries to the Islamists and the Marxists. Them they love. The Prime Minister of UK, you never hear them criticize him. The clown that runs France, Macron, you never hear them criticize him. The radical left-wing jerk that runs Australia, you never hear them criticize him. The radical left-wing kook who runs Spain, never criticize him. The radical left-wing kook who runs Ireland, you never hear them criticize him. The communists in our hemisphere who are still pillaging and murdering, you never hear them criticize them. They don't even mention the name of the so-called president of Egypt, He's a dictator, military dictator, Sisi. You never hear them mention him, do you? They never mention the emir of Qatar unless they're kissing his ass. Do you? How about the crown prince of Saudi Arabia? Remember that country that attacked us on 9/11? Never hear them mention him. How about the king of Jordan who was there? His country was handed to him from his father. They've slaughtered an awful lot of Palestinians over the years. Country 70% Palestinian. That kingdom is a fake kingdom that was created by Britain. Oh, yeah. Many of these so-called Arab countries are fake kingdoms created by Britain. So be it. But they don't talk about them. They don't talk about the slaughter of black Christians, African Christians on the African continent by the Islamists. How come? How come they don't talk about Sudan and the Congo and Nigeria, where little girls are raped and brutalized? How come they don't talk about that? How come they don't talk about this guy in Syria who we're all supposed to like now? Our envoy's got his head way up his ass, out his right nostril. What's his name? Tom Barak or something like that? He's busy killing Christians and then blames it on the Christians. The only one coming to their defense are the Israelis. And then the Israelis, you see, they're picking fights. It's enough already with the Israelis. The Houthis shot a ballistic missile at Israel. So Israel went there and hammered them. Who's the head of the Houthis in Yemen? Does anybody know? Of course not. They never mention the guy. Never. And then we get the crowd that says, I've always supported Israel. It's Netanyahu I don't like. He's prime minister for almost 13 years. Obviously, he's liked. He's elected. He's got his coalition, regardless of what our media say, the European media say, and most of the Israeli media say. He's the democratically elected prime minister. There's not another democratically elected person in the entire Middle East. Not one, but him. But if they'd only get rid of him, then it would be okay. No, then Israel would have ceased to exist based on what took place. They have a great leader. We have a great leader. The media hate him. The media hate Trump. The left wing hates Trump. The left wing hates Netanyahu. The difference here is we have bigots, some neo-Nazis, some grifters, some who are on the take, some who are just mentally ill, who side with the Islamists and the Marxists against the greatest leader Israel's ever had. And now they're backstabbing our president, who said he's with Israel. He's always with Israel. Some of them play games. I've always said I'm for Israel. Excuse me, I'm sneezing to the truth. I've always said I'm for Israel. Just because I platform, you know, Tucker Carlson all the time doesn't mean I'm against Israel. And then they invoke Charlie Kirk's name. Is that sick, Mr. Producer? They invoke Charlie Kirk's name. In fact, that's getting really sick. To defend their hate, they invoke Charlie? I believe Charlie's resting in peace. And people should stop trying to use his name to advance truly sick agendas in many cases. Not all, but in many. More to say. I'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future. future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Where Americans meet to defend liberty and defeat tyranny. Call the Mark Levin Show now at 877-381-3811.
Remember I told you this guy, Chris Murphy, he looks like he just woke up and left his crypt. This guy doesn't have to pretend he's a ghost on Halloween. He's a ghost on every ween, every day. But that's not really the issue. The issue is he is a slime ball extraordinaire. This guy from Connecticut, the Nutmeg State. How proud are you of that? He's on the Morning Schmo Show. He's one of the most vile. Much of what he says, some of the worst things. He's a real sleazeball. You should ask his wife, or is it his ex-wife now? Cut 12, go.
Listen, it should not matter whether the radicalization comes from the right or the left or, sort of the non-ideological.
Well, why wouldn't that matter? The language you're using, a-hole, and that your party is using, and that you've always used since the slavery period, the segregation period, the eugenics period, yeah. The modern segregation period, and now, you people are inciting exactly what you want to incite. Your little militias that grow out, whether it was 2020 or whether it's now. You've got Soros and others who fund these things. That's why the president's looking into it, because these are revolutionary acts. These are violent revolutionary acts. Marxism is the most violent political ideology man has ever constructed. Ever. Go ahead.
Dark recesses of the internet. This vice president, has had a chance now since the assassination of Charlie Kirk to bring the country together to try to stamp out all
sorts of... Bring the country together? You don't want the country to be brought together, you jackass. You Democrats are now insisting you're going to shut down the government. You're trying to blame everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy and that party wants to spend $1.5 trillion more dollars. Interest on the debt is through the roof. It's bigger than the defense budget. They spent like wild Marxists, like drunken Marxists, when they controlled both chambers under Biden. They lied to you about the Inflation Reduction Act that created inflation because it had nothing to do with reducing inflation. They feathered their own nests. They lined their own pockets and those of their friends. They were sending money for every nonsensical cause imaginable in our country and outside our country. They opened our borders. I could go on and on and on. But we won't come together with them. They back Mondami, a Marxist, Islamist, Jew hater for mayor of New York. They got another one running in Minneapolis. Oh, yeah. You and I, we should get together with these people, don't you see? They try to destroy our president. They try to destroy members of his cabinet. Yeah, we need to get and unite with these people. They mocked the death of Charlie Kirk, assassinated. What's to get together with? I don't get it. They're trying to destroy our country. I don't know. I'm not into that. I don't want to get together for that. Go ahead.
Political violence, and they refuse to do that. What they are trying to do is exploit these murders and these shootings in order to
You
silence.
and I are trying to exploit the murders and shootings, folks, don't you know? We're trying to confront it, address it, deal with it. And he says we're trying to exploit. Where is he? He's on the Morning Schmo Show. You know, Schmo, you should know better than this. To let this piece of garbage, this bleeding hemorrhoid on your program. You should know better than this. Go ahead.
Only dissent and political opposition on the left. No, criticizing the way that ICE is rounding up people in this country in a deeply inhumane...
Well, how else do you round up people who are here illegally, and many of whom are violent criminals? How else do you do it? How did Eisenhower do it? Exactly the same way. how other presidents done it exactly the same way. I wish they would show a little bit more compassion for their victims, American citizens, a little bit more compassion for Americans who are losing jobs to these people, a little more compassion for some of these people who have been sold into sex slavery, a little more compassion for the unaccompanied minors who are missing, all 300,000. Then come on these programs with their cold-blooded bullcrap. Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Sick. Absolutely sick. Here's the former ICE director, acting ICE director under Barack Milhouse Benito Obama, who helped unleash so much of this crazy-ass crap that's going on in this country. John Sandweg. Cut 14, go.
You know, unfortunately, ICE has become a symbol of the Trump administration. As a result of that, it's a target for violent extremists, and we need to do a quick assessment of what does that mean in terms of officer safety and the safety of the detainees who are in ISIS care and custody.
Isn't it funny how the men and women of ISIS love Donald Trump? They despised Biden and Obama. Isn't it amazing? That most, not all, but most of the individuals in ICE are brown people, to quote Newsom. Hispanic people, most of the people in the Border Patrol are brown people, Hispanic people, bilingual, because that's required, that's needed. Isn't that amazing? Not all, but most of those attacking ICE and the Border Patrol agents are lily white. We got to have a new category for them. Translucent. Ooh, oh yes. Like Chris Murphy. That guy looks like death walking. That guy is a freak show. A freak show in a suit. And Tom Homan says over and over again what we all know. This is the law. ICE is enforcing the law. So the open borders was one of the greatest lawless acts of a president in American history. And now the Democrat Party, having imported what they hoped would be more Democrats, having imported individuals so they can get more congressional seats, having imported what they hope will be birthright citizenship babies, they're trying to protect their lawlessness with more lawlessness. And with rhetoric that is intended, listen, to gaslight violence. That's the intention. Whether it's the Marxists in the street, the Islamists in the street, or others attacking ICE. They're all in. They were all in the 1960s and early 70s with the New Left movement. Students for Democratic Action. The Weather Underground. Now it's Students for Justice in Palestine. Well, then go back to Palestine and work out your justice issues. It's a hellhole because of the people who run it. Oh, yeah. Tom Homan today on Fox. Cut 15, go.
This is based on hate. Hate that's being fueled by the media and members of Congress and governors and mayors. You played it on your show. We got to stop. ICE agents are enforcing the law Congress enacted. If you don't like what ICE is doing, then go tell Congress, because they wrote the laws that ICE is obligated and took an oath to enforce. They're making this country safe again. Every day, they take a public safety threat.
But not safe from Democrats. Not safe from the Democrat militia. Not safe from George Soros and the other dark money billionaires pouring money into these violent groups. No. It's funny how the Democrats don't want to know from any of them. Who are the billionaires? The billionaires. How about their billionaires? How about Soros? Bernie the Red. How about it? You want to investigate George and Alex? Go ahead.
It makes that community safer. All these politicians and mayors and governors should be calling President Trump and thanking them for making their community safe again.
No, they're never going to thank them for making the community safe again, because you understand. They apparently don't want safe communities because there's a lot they could do about it, even without President Trump. The only reason President Trump is trying to intervene is because they won't take the steps needed. They don't provide the budget needed. They don't provide the training needed. They don't provide the backup of law enforcement that's needed. They don't support real prosecutors rather than Soros prosecutors, real judges rather than activist lawyers dressed up as judges. This is what they've created. This is what they want. That's why they resist Donald Trump. Yeah, that's why they resist Donald Trump. Look at California. Look at Newsom. He's taken the greatest state in the country, the most beautiful state with the best weather, more resources, the biggest economy, and he's destroyed it. He destroyed it. Newsom destroyed California. Despite everything I just told you, people are trying to get the hell out of there. Or people are 2, 3, 4 generations say they don't want to leave. It's my home. It's my property. I get it. This guy can't even make water run into water hydrants. Can't even do that. But he's got all kinds of great ideas, don't you know? The only ideas he has that work are to create a monopoly party, a one-party system in California. That's what they have. Supermajority Democrats in the Assembly, supermajority Democrats in the Senate. If you get under 60, 65% of a vote and you're a Democrat candidate for governor, you're a loser. Because they've so thoroughly changed the demographics and the population of California. That's why Pelosi, that's why all the Democrats did what they did with the open border. It worked in California, and they want to do it with the rest of the country. It's that simple. That's it. Case closed. So when Donald Trump's in office and he wants to literally enforce the law, which, of course, is what dictators do, you know. They want to enforce the law. Then they attack him. They attack ICE. They attack the Border Patrol. Now, what should be abundantly clear now is simple. He's been indicted. Well, let's take a break. Looks like we have some breaking news. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. James Comey has been indicted. As far as we know, there's not a lot out there on 2 counts, one a false statement and another obstruction. I do not have before me the charges. As soon as I do, I will convey them to you and comment on it. And so we are waiting. I will tell you now that the entire Democrat establishment and some of the rhinos, some of the anti-Trumpers, anti-MAGA, they'll be all over this as retribution, even before they see what the charges are. I seem to recall he went after Martha Stewart for a number of things. Maybe it was stock trading or something, but false statements was one of them. So we shall see. I do not have a ton of information right now, but we are gathering it. And Pam Bondi made a post about nobody being above the law, and that we will follow the facts where they go, which, of course, is something the Democrats do not want. You know, folks, if somebody lied, made a false statement, obstructed justice, that's not retribution to charge them. You know, on my tax returns, I overpay my taxes. Have I said this before? I think I have, right, Rich? I overpay my taxes. The accountants always say, why are you paying? I said, because I want to be 100% sure. That's all. 100% sure And if somebody wants to play games and come after me, I want to make it clear, actually, they owe me money. I don't owe them money. So I do that. I not only have my accountants dot the I's and cross the T's, and I then tell them, no, give them some extra money. What? Yes, give them some extra money. Now, talking here about a false statement and obstruction, and I've heard people say, a couple of my friends on TV, that it's hard to prove a false statement. Depends on the facts. Depends on the circumstances. It could be very easy in some cases or very difficult in some. Now, these are cases, or these are charges that will be litigated in the Eastern District of Virginia. Now, at least it's not Washington, D.C., where if you're a Democrat, they have a rubber stamp. Pass, 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 pass. But the Eastern District of Virginia is not what it used to be either. It's loaded with bureaucrats and Democrats now. That said, it's got a lot of patriots. Men and women who serve in the military or veterans. CIA personnel or former CIA, and on and on and on, because you have these facilities in Northern Virginia. So we shall see. Of course, people are complaining. They're saying things like, well, Donald Trump, that text, which apparently didn't mean to go public, is my understanding, but I don't know for a fact, talking about why are we waiting and not going after these people. Now, they weren't critical of Joe Biden, were they? When he was complaining openly about the Attorney General, his Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, where he said he acts like a ponderous judge. Remember that, Rich? Oh, no, that's okay. That's just good old Joe. That's Joe from Scranton. We all know what he meant. He didn't mean it. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. This obstruction, false statements. They used a lot of that against Donald Trump. They used a lot of it against people around whom that they charged. Oh, yeah. So, Comey's a sleazeball. He had a lot of power to hurt people, and he hurt people. He did. And he tried to sabotage, right out of the box, President Trump's first presidency. And his agency was very active in trying to sabotage his campaign. There's no question about that. And at the same time, even though the Democrats attacked him, he laid out the case against Hillary Clinton. And then he pulled the plug, even though it wasn't his call. It was the call of the Attorney General of the United States, the prosecution side. He did it anyway. He said, but we will not charge her. But he's not in charge of that. Didn't matter. So he covered Hillary's substantial ass. And yet he tried to concoct an entire collusion thing against Trump. We'll see if we can glean more during the break. The breaking news is that James Comey has been indicted on 2 counts, 1 false statement, 1 obstruction. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
We're back. Breaking news is that James Comey, former FBI director, was indicted on 2 counts, 1 involving a false statement and another involving obstruction, dealing with testimony. The news is reporting, we don't have it in front of us, almost 5 years ago to the day, which is why they would pull the trigger now, so they wouldn't lose it on the statute of limitations. The testimony he gave in response to Ted Cruz's question about whether he leaked to the media. He said he stuck by his prior answer, which was no. The problem is, struck I think it is, I'm doing it by memory, had testified that he had spoken to the media. If it's not Strzok, I believe it was somebody else then. And people are saying, well, this is hard to prove. That's not hard to prove. It'd be hard to get a jury to find it guilty, but it's not hard to prove. And this is the sort of stuff the Trump people went through, this sort of stuff that the Democrats were constantly looking for in the meritless Garland Department of Justice and their U.S. attorneys, all particularly in the D.C. area. Particularly in the D.C. area. So this is what people believe. Now remember, this was the politicization of law enforcement. This was the Russia collusion lie that was used to try and destroy the Trump campaign and then the Trump presidency in the first term. And this is what Republicans were asking about at the time in 2020. Now, we have the audio of the question and the answer from almost 5 years ago, which appears to be center stage in this indictment. Go.
Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave. I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
I believe the issue there was that he, with a wink and a nod or more, knew and encouraged McCabe to do something of that sort. Now, if that's the case, why is that a hard-to-prove case, Mr. Producer? He said, no. No. He didn't mealy-mouth it. That's what he said. No. Now, we'll know soon enough when we get the documents in front of us, and we are trying. Once they're made publicly available, we will have them. And you're in the right place at the right time. So people are doing a lot of speculation. I thought it was interesting. One of the main media outlets immediately said Comey indicted after Trump issued text demanding his indictment. That's not why he was indicted. You have a statute of limitations that is about to run. And then I heard another person say that there was a memo, a declination, meaning declining memo, written by career prosecutors. Well, who cares what the career prosecutors write? Now, this is amazing to me. We've been through what they did to Trump in multiple jurisdictions, local, state, and federal. You didn't hear about declinations and anything of the sort back then, did you? There was no inference that when Joe Biden said, as an example, out loud, I believe it was a New York Times interview, don't hold me to it, but that's my recollection, that the problem with the Attorney General is he conducts himself like a ponderous judge, meaning get on with it. Or the meetings that Fanny's boyfriend had at the White House twice with White House counsel. We still haven't gotten to the bottom of that. And I can go on and on and on. Nobody found any problems with that. We will see. Time will tell. And they're going to try and convince you, the media, that this is a nothing case. The legal analysts will try and convince you. The rhino lawyers are coming out of the woodwork now, along with the Democrat lawyers, the never-Trumpers. So their views will be very skewed. Mine will not be. I will know it. I'll look at it. I've seen this stuff 1,000 times. It would make sense if this is the situation. And as I talk to you, we're continuing to look for the actual charge documents. And but Comey was a slimeball the whole way through, trying to set up Donald Trump. He's not a sympathetic figure. He's not a victim. Quite the contrary. He's a perpetrator. Let's see here. Let's see if there's more to this. This is ABC News headline. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted days after Trump demanded his DOJ take action. Move now to prosecute his enemies. That's how ABC News, without even having the documents. That's how ABC News reports it. You know, the Jimmy Kimmel Network. Comey indicted for alleged false statement, obstruction of justice. That's the Fox News. And they reference the September 2020 testimony about his handling of the original Trump-Russia probe at the FBI, known inside the Bureau's Crossfire Hurricane. Bondi put out a statement on X, nobody's above the law. Today's indictment reflects the department's commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. Look how they did the search warrant on John Bolton's home and office. Look what they found. They found classified information. Remember how that was being trashed, Mr. Producer? Oh, that's bogus, we were told. That's nonsense. Kash Patel. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions, severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue the fight. Turn the trust back, and under my leadership, the FBI will confront the problem head on. Nowhere was this politicization of law enforcement more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, a disgraceful chapter in history we continue to investigate and expose. Everyone, especially those in positions of power, will be held to account, no matter their perch. Fox News Digital also exclusively reported former CIA Director John Brennan is under criminal investigation related to the Trump-Russia probe. See, we have the documents now, the DNA, the fingerprints, the evidence that this whole Russia probe thing, which I broke first. That's the irony here. I'm the one who broke it first. I think it was March 2nd, 2017. Right here, behind this microphone, in this place. But now we have the documents. Now we have these sleazeball activities that took place. They tried to bring down a president. They tried to bring down his campaign first in 2016. Then they tried to bring down his presidency with a lie. They conducted a criminal investigation. This country's never experienced anything like this before. And the man who was at the center of it was James Comey over at the FBI, and Brennan over at the CIA, and Obama was the tip of the spear. Oh, yes. It's unbelievable, really. Former special counsel Robert Mueller was appointed to take over the FBI's original Crossfire investigation. Remember all that went on all those years? John Durham was appointed as special counsel to investigate the origins of this Crossfire probe. He found the FBI failed to act on a clear warning sign that the Bureau was the target of a Clinton-led effort to manipulate or influence the law enforcement process for political purposes ahead of the 2016 presidential election. That's what Durham found. Now the people who were doing that are being held to account. How's that retaliation? It's called justice. Justice. The Durham report said, indeed, had the FBI opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation as an assessment and in turn gathered and analyzed data in concert with the information from the Clinton plan intelligence, it's likely the information received would have been examined at a minimum with a more critical eye. He said the FBI failed to act on what should have been, when combined with other incontrovertible facts, a clear warning sign to but they didn't want to. The FBI was involved. That's the point. And when they questioned Comey and said, have you leaked? No. Did you leak in the Clinton investigation, Hillary? No. And apparently McCabe said, yeah, we did. And we know McCabe did. Well, they got a little problem. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about. We have a wonderful guest, Josh Hammer, and right before I get to him on this breaking news, I just want to explain what took place. There was testimony under oath by Comey on September 30, 2020. Statute of limitations runs out in just a few days. It's a 5-year statute of limitations. And Comey testified that he did not leak and he didn't authorize any leaks. The problem with that testimony is McCabe, who reported to Comey, he maintained that he did leak and that he informed Comey of his decision. And Comey denied authorizing a leak, and McCabe said yes, he informed him, and it was authorized. So you have conflicting statements under oath from McCabe and Comey. Now, this is no minor matter, to be quite honest about it. I know the media will downplay it, but this whole Russia collusion thing blew up big time, dragged the nation into it. It was a complete fraud from day one, beginning to end. We know that as a matter of fact. And it was as a result of Ted Cruz's questioning. And he highlighted the contradictory statements. And he pointed out, one of you was lying. To the Comey or McCabe. Honestly, you don't screw around with Ted Cruz too much when it comes to this kind of examination. So, and even the Inspector General's report in 2018, they said McCabe had showed a lack of candor, misleading investigators, the involvement of his leak in their investigation. And, of course, McCabe's defense disputed that. Comey's reaction to the IG report, he acknowledged its findings. Lack of candor, a key difference. The IG report accused McCabe of a lack of candor. So you're going to see this if it plays out. And you've got more than those two. You've got the whole CIA and intelligence side. Now, some people will call this retribution. I don't call it retribution. This issue's been hanging out there for a long time, and of course, Biden was sweeping it under the rug. He didn't want anything to do about it. Josh Hammer, not to be unfair to you, what's your initial thinking about all this?
Mark, great to join you as always. I predicted this would happen. This is actually my public prediction. I thought this would be the ultimate result of the Pam Bondi task force that they announced with the new Russiagate documents, because the time frame that you laid out, Mark, is pretty undeniable. I mean, it fits squarely within the 5-year statute of limitations. It seems to me to be pretty clearly a perjury. I guess the question is, will it stick? I mean, that's kind of the $1 million question here, right? It's easy enough to indict him. Can you actually get a unanimous pool of jurors to convict in what will inevitably be a very high?
We're losing our friend Josh on the cell phone. Let's see if we can't circle back there, Mr. Producer. All right, he's going to try and get him back. Josh is a very important voice. I want to get him back. I also have a number of other questions, too. And his point is well taken. Look, we might think it's a slam dunk. In fact, it is a slam dunk. It is. I've seen a lot of cases in my lifetime. This is a slam dunk. His point is, you got to hope a jury finds that. And I think a jury can find that. And I think this is a much bigger issue than the media think it is. as they try and just wrap this around Trump's neck, as they try to wrap everything around Trump's neck. But this was a glaring issue when it happened. And it's a glaring issue now. Go ahead, Josh. Sorry, we lost you.
No problem. Yeah, look, Mark, I think the indictment is pretty straightforward. The actual unanimous juror is going to be potentially an uphill battle if this is in D.C., which is where I believe it's going to play out.
No, it's in Northern Virginia, I think.
Okay, got it. So, and that's potentially a fair bankery about proposition there. Look, I mean, it's very, very hard to see what Jim Comey's defense is here on the actual substantive merits. I mean, I went back and reviewed the transcripts after the PM Benjamin task force was a couple months ago. It's pretty cut and dried perjury. And, you know, Jim Comey is the guy who has been on record as just totally mocking what happened to Michael Flynn there back during the transition period. I mean, Comey is the one responsible for throwing Michael Flynn under the bus. I mean, in many ways, Mark, I actually have long been arguing that the seeds of discord that today afflict the American citizenry, where Americans have virtually no trust in elites and institutions with narratives more generally, I draw a direct line all the way back to Russiagate. I think it starts with Russiagate and then continues with the Mueller probe that swallows up half the Trump presidency. You get the 2020 election, Hunter by the laptop, and the FBI that collusion, the COVID-19 lockdown.
All right, here's what we're going to do. Rich, try again, and maybe Josh can move to another location or something like that. But he's making great points, and I don't want to lose him. And just to reiterate, his point there is that he believes, and I think it makes sense, that a lot of the souring on American institutions started right here with this whole Russiagate nonsense, this whole Russia hoax. And you watch how the media tries to cover this up, and tries to do a U-turn and attack Trump. ABC's already done this. That if it wasn't for Trump and his text, none of this would happen. Well, maybe true, maybe false, but it should happen. This has been one of these glaring issues that has just hung out there because the Biden regime didn't want to pursue it, as you can imagine, and they didn't. And it's not the only one. Do we have him or not? Okay, we're going to call him back on a different line after the break and bring Josh back. I want to discuss this. I also want to discuss his last discussion and maybe prior discussions with Charlie Kirk. He spoke to Charlie at some length the day before Charlie was assassinated. Josh Hammer has written a great book. He's an Orthodox Jew, and Charlie sought him out for how to address some of the issues that might come up in Utah related to Israel and Judaism and anti-Semitism and so forth. So I have some questions. We'll be right back. When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk. Wireless worth bragging about.
Mark Levin, making conservatism great again. Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with our friend Josh Hammer, who wrote this great best-selling book, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation, and really of the West, as he points out. I just want to pursue this a little further, and I want to get to another issue with you, Josh, which is this. The more I think about this guy Comey and the point you make, which is a very good point, that he did grave damage, he and the others, to the public's view of our institutions. He really did. I mean, and he knew as this was proceeding, this whole Russia hoax stuff, that it was a lie he dragged the nation through this. They set up a special counsel to investigate this. God knows if they would have issued more indictments or indictments period on this. I mean, he sat back and he watched his dirty work in many respects. No.
Yeah, that is all emphatically true. I mean, we now know beyond the shadow of a doubt. I mean, we've really known this for years, Mark. You know, our buddy Lee Smith has literally wrote multiple books on this. So we've known a lot of these scummy, and that really is the word. We've known a lot of these scummy details about Russiagate for years, but even more details came to light in July with the DNI and CIA declassifications. And there simply is no doubt at this point that when they decided to launch this investigation, that they were laundering, among other things, highly politicized Hillary Clinton laundered quote-unquote intelligence, namely the infamous Steele dossier. Comey knew all of this. He was well aware of all of this. He was the reason that Michael Flynn got dismissed essentially before his job even started. And yeah, I think the relevant point in the year 2025, because a lot of folks be like, "Oh, Josh, oh, Mark, Russiagate was a long time ago," and fair enough, it actually was. But the reason I think it's so relevant is this point that I was making before the break, which is that we have Russiagate to thank for the beginning of a series of events that have caused the American people to lose catastrophic, cataclysmic levels of trust. And you look at the inability today to distinguish, in many cases, truth from lies, facts from fiction. I think a lot of this inability to intake information, decide that which is right and that which is wrong, comes from these series of psyops. And I think the original psyop of the past decade really was Russiagate, and Jim Comey was at ground zero of that all along with John Brennan.
President has posted justice in America. One of the worst human beings this country's ever been exposed to is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI. Today he was indicted by a grand jury, 2 felony counts for various illegal and unlawful acts. He has been so bad for our country for so long and is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation. I want to move on to another topic, and that is your relationship, your friendship with Charlie Kirk. Your last conversation with him, you know, there's a lot of very bad people out there, Josh. I've talked about them on the air. I've named them. I'm not going to drag you into this, okay? But who are taking his horrendous murder and appear to be projecting their own ideological pursuits or even unhinged beliefs on top of him. And what I've tried to do here is actually play my discussions with Charlie Kirk, whether it was on Fox, whether it's on radio, so people could hear what he said. Same with these clips that I've been playing. I'm not cherry picking or anything. I'm just playing them. This is what he said about this and so forth. Now, his opinions change from time to time. Sometimes he might have 2 positions on the same issue. I mean, he was working things through like the rest of us and so forth. Tell us about the conversation. What was he trying to do? And it must have been a double shock to you. You just spoke to him. And the next thing you know, he's been assassinated.
Yeah, Mark, it's a day that I will not forget anytime soon. Look, I've known Charlie for years, as many of us in this space have, but we became considerably closer, I'd say, over the past year and a half, give or take. We were talking virtually every day for a while, and we were talking about all the issues that you would expect, about how to fight rising anti-Semitism, how to contain it, what to do about it, how to make sure that younger millennial and Gen Z conservatives in particular stay focused and care about the Israel issue. So, yes, literally the night before, from 6 to 7 p.m. on the East Coast, Charlie held a Zoom call with myself, a rabbi, mutual friend of ours over in Jerusalem, and a couple others, and he had a series of questions. He basically said, you know, when they asked me on this campus tour about genocide, how do I respond? When they asked me about apartheid, how do I respond? And Charlie knew these answers, Mark. He was very knowledgeable in general, but especially probably on the Israel issue. So it's not that he necessarily needed the facts. I think he wanted to workshop some messaging. What is the most effective way of messaging, communicating to the younger generation? But the mere fact, Mark, that he had me on the night before his campus tour to go over this issue, I mean, that singularly disproves this notion that you're hearing from the Candace Owenses, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, that Charlie Kirk was ready to pull a 180 and renounce his friendship with the Jewish people. Mark, this is a guy who literally has a forthcoming book, hopefully it's published posthumously, about keeping the Sabbath, and he kept his version of the Sabbath when Orthodox Jews do, from Friday night to Saturday night. He used to study Torah with Dennis Prager. Charlie Kirk, Mark, his Christianity was something of a throwback to the Christianity of the American founding. It was the Christianity of George Washington, John Adams, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton. It was rooted in the Hebrew Bible. So these issues, the Jewish people, the state of Israel, these were not just normal public policy issues for Charlie Kirk. They were core to his worldview. And, we didn't agree on necessarily everything. We would quibble about where to draw the line when it comes to platforming. I didn't love the fact that Tucker Carlson spoke at the same Turning Point conference in July that I spoke at when I debated Dave Smith. So we definitely did not agree 100% of the time. But his heart was unequivocally in the right place when it came to these matters, because his way of thinking about the world through his Christian worldview was in a fundamentally sound place as well. And yes, it was absolutely positively shocking when I first got the message that he had been shot. I did a double take. I couldn't believe it. And we've lost a truly special human being. We've lost an amazing father, an amazing husband, a great friend of mine, and an amazing friend of the Jewish people, no matter what the Candaces and Tuckers of the world might say.
In fact, I just returned from Israel. He's extraordinarily popular there. They're very upset about it. They have incredibly large murals of him. We saw that in Tel Aviv when we went to the Netanyahu trial. We saw posters of him in Jerusalem. Let me ask you this, Josh Hammer. I haven't heard the head of Qatar, the head of Egypt, the head of Saudi Arabia say a damn thing. And I did hear on multiple occasions the Prime Minister of Israel praise him. What do you make of that?
So Prime Minister Netanyahu, the day after the assassination, Mark, he went on Fox News. He went on Harris Faulkner's Fox News show. And he made reference to this letter that Charlie wrote to him back in May. And I actually was given access to this letter from Charlie's team back in June or July or so. And I didn't talk about it publicly because it was a very kind of private hush-hush thing. And then Netanyahu spoke about it publicly, so it's no longer much of a secret. Well, let me tell you, Mark, I've read every letter of this letter. It's critical of how Israel conducts PR, and Charlie had a lot of, I think, very sound, constructive advice for how Israel can fix some of its PR issues. But the very first line of this letter that he wrote to BB back in May, literally the first line, is, as a Christian, one of my greatest joys in life is befriending Jewish people and the state of Israel. That's how the letter begins. Because, again, he was, whatever disagreements or objections he might have had, he genuinely was a friend. And he was not a friend necessarily to the radical Muslim world. In fact, if you look at his public statements over the final year of his tragically truncated life, he was really, really critical of not just radical Islam, but actually Islam in general. He would repeatedly argue that Islam and the Judeo-Christian biblical West are incompatible, which is one of the core themes, by the way, as you know, of my book, Israel and Civilization. In fact, Mark, you'll appreciate this. On that final Zoom call that Charlie and I had the night before he was tragically killed, he actually joked to me. He said, Josh, man, I'm going to help you sell so many book copies on this tour, because when the students ask me about this topic, I'm just going to say, buy Josh Hammer's book. That's the same book that has your quote, my friend, on the top of the cover, actually, the Mark Levin quote right there. So, look, again, the Candaces, the Tuckers, they're trying to rewrite him as some sort of martyr for their demonic and satanic causes, and that is what they are. I mean, they're demonic, satanic causes, this whole outrageous information operation to try to drive a wedge between the original people of the book, the Jewish people, and the great Gentile offshoot, the Christians who have built Western civilization. It's evil. It has to be stopped. Charlie was a force for good in trying to prevent that rupture, and I just hope we can try to keep those two people, the Jews and the Christians, together in his absence.
He makes such great points. You know, he texts a lot with everybody, including me and my wife. And I remember where we disagreed. He wasn't sure originally about taking out these Iranian nuclear sites. Not with Israel. He said, that's fine, but I don't know that we should get involved. And he was pulled by two different camps, and he wasn't sure where to come down. And He and I disagreed on that. I said, you need to be sure. This is the president's position. We need to support the president. So when it was done and very successful, he sends us a text. And he says, I think we should unite behind the president right now. And I said, I think you're right, which has been my position. I am uniting behind the president. I think it's a good thing. He was always honorable. And when he debated issues, he was always honest. And I think that's very, very important. In other words, even when he felt he was wrong and knew he was wrong, he always kind of said so. And he was very, very tied into President Trump. He was very, very tied into the state of Israel, too. And this is why I'm so troubled. I just find the people, look, you talk to him. I've talked to him many times. My wife talked to him many times. I've got texts that I'm not going to read, how he actually thought about some of these people who claim to be his buddies, by the way. I'm not going to do that. But this effort now to say, Charlie, I'm doing this because Charlie would do it. I'm doing this because Charlie would do it. And I know that's not true. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Mark, it's just disgusting that we're even having this conversation, isn't it? True. I mean, this young 31-year-old husband and father is assassinated by a left-wing, transgender-adjacent, furry, fetishist, left-wing activist, and somehow we're having to defend Charlie Kirk's friendship with the Jews. I mean, like, you know, draw that line for me. I mean, how do we get from point A to point B? So it's just totally nuts, frankly, that we're even having this conversation. It speaks to the nefarious and, in many ways, the evil ends and pet crusades of some of these various actors. But you make a very astute point about Charlie, which is if you watch these videos of him on the campuses over the years, he would always be so calm. And he was genuinely, you know, he was tragically killed, Mark, under a tent that said, "Prove me wrong." Yeah. And he was actually interested in not necessarily just bringing up the Turning Point USA campus activists. He wanted to talk to the lefties. He wanted to actually engage in political debate. Again, he was very much a throwback. His Christianity was a throwback. His viewpoints on free speech, on free debate was very much a throwback. It was something of a throwback to a bygone era. And he was so calm and so still because his goal in these exchanges was not to get one of these viral kind of own the libs style YouTube moments. Rather, his goal, I think, was to actually on a one-on-one basis try to draw people over to the cause of conservatism, the cause of truth and justice, the American way, and so forth there. And you know, again, it's a tremendous void. I mean, look, Charlie and I, we had our disagreements as any friend did, but you know, he went above and beyond for me in a kind of a personal, professional way, at least, 2-3 times, whatever it was there. He was a loyal person who would never hesitate to pick up the phone, make a phone call when a friend needed a favor. And above all, Mark, he was kind of indispensable trying to hold the MAGA coalition together. He fervently believed in this MAGA coalition, and he saw himself, I think, properly as one of the younger leaders of that coalition. The other thing that I worry about is in his absence, what will happen to some of the truly, truly fringe stuff, kind of the Nick Fuentes neo-Nazi filth that Charlie was really doing a lot to keep at bay. He really did draw a hard line at some of that. Now, we can kind of quibble whether he drew a hard enough line at some individuals, like a Tucker, for instance, but he really did do yeoman's work in drawing a lot of these hard lines, and I kind of am worried about what might happen there in his absence as well. No,
that's great points. Josh Hammer has this great book, folks, Israel and Civilization. And in it, he's talking about Christianity as well, the West. Where do these ideas come from? Will we survive? How do we survive? What do we need to do? It's a tremendous book. I'd encourage you to get it at Amazon.com. Josh Hammer, thank you, my friend, and God bless you, and you be safe, too.
You too, Mark.
All right, be well. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about. Well, we have the indictment in front of us. On or about September 30th, we thought, 2020, the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant James Comey did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. Senator, that would be Ted Cruz, during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James Comey, had not authorized, quote, someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports, unquote, regarding the FBI. The statement was false because Comey then and there knew he, in fact, had authorized person number 3, this is McCabe, I suppose, to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning a person. Seems to me this is important. You're the FBI director. Did you leak? Did you leak? Seems to me important, Mr. Producer, not to be sloughed off. On or about September 30, defendant James Comey did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. Interesting, they used Section 1505, the one that they tried to use against Trump. Isn't that interesting, Mr. Producer? 18 U.S.C. 1001 is the false statements provision. You make a false statement to the FBI, that's what they'll charge you with right there. Well, Ted Cruz is one of my buddies. I just texted him. Let's see if we can get him in here in the third hour, the 8 p.m. hour, so don't leave. It was he, through his questioning, that wound up getting this information divulged. He's a brilliant lawyer, always was. He was a brilliant litigator. You know, the great Alan Dershowitz said he was his greatest student. Now, that's saying a lot. You're at Harvard Law School and you have the best of the best coming through. He says Cruz was his best student. Lots coming up, folks. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number is 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Ami Kozak, I don't know him. I didn't know him prior to a few months ago that he existed, but he is hilarious. He is a great, great comedian. He should get a night show. But nobody does a better Tucker Carlson than Ami Kozak. I want you to take a listen to this. A little bit of entertainment here. Cut 20, go.
I mean, I absolutely hate identity politics. I really hate it, actually. It's one of the worst things. I hate it as a man, as a Christian, as a white person. I despise identity politics as a Christian and as a white person, as a man. I mean, I think it's one of the worst things. I think it's one of the worst things we have. And so I just can't understand how people are attacking me personally as a white person, as a Christian, as a man. Like, hello, hello, let's talk about the arguments. Why are they attacking me personally? I mean, look at someone like Ben Shapiro, who's Jewish.
Okay, but you just said you hate it.
No one's caused more division than people like Ben Shapiro, who is Jewish. I mean, that's fine. And Dave Rubin, I mean, What is Dave Rubin? I mean, he's gay. He's gay and he's Jewish. And so I hate identity politics. I hate using people's identity to discredit them. I think it's disgusting. Really disgusting, actually.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure why you were bringing up Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin's identity.
And Mark Levin. I mean, hello. What's your point? I hate identity politics.
But you keep invoking it.
I also hate the movie The Bourne Identity, The Bourne Supremacy. I mean, I'm against supremacy of any kind, really. The Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne. He had an identity in the movie. He was trying to hide it. I thought that was very dishonest, really disrespectful and dishonest to me as the viewer. I mean, tell me who you are. And so I just think a lot of these people, these conservatives, I thought they were conservatives, are dividing this country.
They're dividing this country? I mean, they're pretty united.
They're turning the American people, who are largely Christian, still majority white, I mean, at least for now, and a lot of men, white Christian men, are feeling completely lonely, and I despise identity politics.
Tucker, what do you mean by identity politics?
And the other day I was trying to make a purchase online, and I got on the phone to speak to a representative. They asked for my social security number because they wanted to verify my identity. I was offended by that, deeply offended by that.
Wait, why were you offended by that?
Because I don't like identity politics, at all.
Okay, but that's not what identity politics is, Tucker. Do you just not like the word identity?
Yes. Anyway, I think it's just important to speak out against identity politics entirely, and I say that as a man, as a Christian, as a white person. I'm not ashamed of that at all, at all.
Okay, and you shouldn't be. Anyway, what are your thoughts on identity politics?
I love them.
There it is.
All right, this guy is hilarious. So much truth to the humor. Dennis Prager spoke about Charlie Kirk. Dennis Prager is paralyzed, most of his body, had a terrible accident. And he often has a ventilator, but he wanted to talk about Charlie and was interviewed by the CEO of Prager University, which is a fantastic organization. They were very close. And the truth is, Charlie looked up to Dennis. Dennis had studied to be a rabbi for a period of time. And a lot of what he talked about the Sabbath, he's talking about the Jewish Sabbath. His book is about the Jewish Sabbath. The same hours, the same day as Orthodox Jews recognize the Sabbath, and this was very important to Charlie Kirk. And I think our friend Josh Hammer just really filled in a gap for me here when he said that Charlie is really a believer in sort of the old embrace of Christianity. And I think that's right. The traditional view of Christianity. Not about replacement theory or any of these other things. No. He was a traditional, believing, embracing Christian, which made him the class act that he is, or was, I should say. So here it is, Dennis Prager on Charlie Kirk. Cut 21, go.
So, Dennis, we're sitting here today on the day of the memorial of Charlie Kirk. I came here because I wanted to sit with you, knowing that it is very likely that if you could, you would have been on that stage speaking in memory of Charlie. But sadly, you couldn't. And so the world still wants to hear what you have to say and maybe what you would have said if you were on stage.
Well, I think you're right. I think I would have been invited. Erica knew of our friendship and how much I had touched Charlie's life, as I mentioned earlier. He claimed to have listened to more of my talks and courses than probably anyone else, and he might be right. And he's dedicated his last book to me, and I was very moved by that. I did record something for them, but it was without video, and I'm not even sure she ever got to hear it. And in it, I commented on something I mentioned to you at the beginning when my friend from high school, Rabbi Joseph Telushkin, told me, and he's officiated at, I'm sure, at least 100 funerals. What he does is he speaks to the friends and the widow or widower and the children. And he was particularly moved when he would meet the children of the person who died. And they would each tell him that they believed that they were the most loved of the children. And that's what Charlie's friends think. We were all the closest friend that he had. And you heard at the memorial that's what people felt. That's what Charlie was able to achieve, which is a very great accomplishment. Anyway, and I would have spoken about his courage, but not just courage, his knowledge. I mean, I would watch him respond to all these students who threw everything they had at him. And his responses were so excellent and so knowledge-based. I couldn't get over how much he knew and how much he retained. Anyway, it was all very remarkable.
Pretty amazing to see almost the entire cabinet, the vice president, the president, all gathered in one place, right?
What is most remarkable is even I, and I'm not sure Charlie knew how big his impact was. There's a saying among the timber workers in Oregon, you never know the height of a tree until it falls. And that's the case with Charlie.
Beautiful. First I've heard from Dennis Prager in a long time since his terrible accident. And my wife keeps in touch with his wife. Just a very small fraternity, folks. He's a great guy. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're here with our friend Peter Navarro. You know, Peter, I don't know of a more propitious time than to have you on right now. You've written a fascinating book, a very important book, that kind of overlays with what's taking place right now with the Comey indictment. Tell us about this.
Mark, I went to prison so you won't have to. The book, the message of that is accountability. If we don't hold them accountable, they'll keep doing it to us. And today was the beginning of accountability for an entire FBI structure and political establishment in D.C. that have waged war using the justice system against Donald Trump and everybody who works for him and everything he stands for. So this timing is everything, Mark, and I'm so honored to be on your show on this day because I've been talking about putting Comey behind bars since 2020. And what's interesting about it, a little inside baseball for you, they didn't just indict him on lying to Congress. It took them a little longer to get to the whole thing. They got him on obstruction as well, it looks like. That's 10 years in prison, okay? And at the end of the day, if he gets convicted, that guy damn well ought to go to prison because I spent 4 months of my life in prison for a misdemeanor for not even breaking the law, simply for defending the Constitution.
And you were treated so awfully. The book is, and let's post it, Mr. Producer, on all my social sites and link it to Amazon. I went to prison so you wouldn't have to. A Love and Lawfare Story in Trumpland. Let's start with the love part of this, Peter. What do you mean by that?
I don't know if you saw my speech at the RNC convention in support of Donald Trump. What was so remarkable about that was it was the day I got out of prison. I didn't know what to expect on the stage, and the thunderous applause I got was just the most heartwarming support for me. And I went to prison so you won't have to. It was a line from the speech, but at the end of the speech, my beautiful love my fiancee, Bonnie, walked on to the stage. I was able to hug and kiss her, twirl her. It was called the kiss and the twirl. And she stuck by me the whole time, Mark. And what these Democrats who do what they do to us have to understand is that they're not just doing to us. We're soldiers. But when they do it to our families, that's when they go too far. So she'd come every weekend. We'd be in the visitor center amongst seeing my fellow inmates. I was the only guy in misdemeanor, 200 felons I'm among. Seeing them with their families, she stuck by me. It made us stronger. And there was a line in the speech where, when I left for prison, she said 3 words to me. They weren't "I love you," because we knew that. It was "we got this," and we did. So it's a beautiful story there.
It is a beautiful story. It's a beautiful book. I went to prison so you won't have to. Love and Lawfare Story in Trumpland. Sorry. Did you... I know what's in your book. I want you to project what's in your book here. Did you ever think that by defending the Constitution in front of Congress that you wind up in prison?
Certainly I knew that there was a risk because I had watched the trajectory of this weaponized government since the time I was helping the president during the 2016 campaign. I mean, you remember, Mark, one of my closest friends was Mike Flynn, who was the National Security Advisor. It was that son of a bitch, Comey, if I can say that on the air, who actually was responsible for getting him out of the White House and making him spend $7 million to defend himself. That's the lawfare
Yeah,
part.
they set him up.
So, yeah, I knew there was a risk, but I was going to stand up for principle. And there's an important principle here. You're a constitutionalist. I think you even worked in the Office of Legal Counsel. For 50 years, Mark, the Office of Legal Counsel opinion, both parties said that if a senior White House advisor gets a subpoena from the legislative branch, it's his duty to the Constitution to refuse that subpoena. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to go against my oath of office and dishonor the White House. So, yeah, but I'll tell you, the whole story of I went to prison so you won't have to is a detailed analysis of just how skewed and weaponized the justice system is. Mark, by the time my case got to jury, they stripped me. The Judge Ahmed made us strip me of every single possible offense. If I said the words executive privilege on the witness stand, I'd get contempt of court. So I was going to prison one way or the other. So that's just wrong. That's just wrong. So there it is. And I'm the only guy who's ever been charged with that, the only guy who's ever gone to prison. It was weaponized. Everybody who put me in jail was a Democrat. And now, here it is. Let's go back to it. Accountability, Mark. If we don't hold them accountable, they'll keep doing it. And so James Comey is the first, but he's not going to be the last.
And what's interesting is I'm already seeing the media and the headlines. They're basically saying Trump called for this, so it happened. The statute of limitations runs in a few days. That's why they did it. And, of course, the bureaucrats don't want to pursue these people because they're Democrats. And when you look at the media coverage of you, well, they dehumanized you. They act like you don't even exist. Yeah. And then you look at what's happening with the media coverage of Comey. What do you make of this?
Well, look, I watch these people. It's like they call us fascists, right? And they're the ones who put me in prison. I mean, all these people wringing their hands now, saying, "Oh, this is the weaponized justice against the Democrats." It's like none of them had any word to say when I went to prison. None of them. Their lips were sealed, or they said, "Yeah, he deserved it." And there was no willingness to examine the broader underlying constitutional issues. They suspended disbelief, and that's the problem with the legacy media. That's the problem with the left-wing media. And I'm watching this, and my job right now, Mark, is to get out there and point out that hypocrisy. And that's why I wrote the book. I mean, I went to prison so you won't have to. The message is that is take a look at what happened. They sent a guy to prison. They put a guy in prison for a misdemeanor amongst felons because he believed, and rightly believed, that it was his duty to the Constitution to refuse that subpoena. So I'm not going to let them get away with turning Comey into a saint or a martyr, because that's not it. He's a liar, he's a leaker, and he's a mastermind of the whole Russia hoax and efforts to undermine and overthrow the government of Donald John Trump.
Folks, I really want to encourage you to get Peter's book. You can go to Amazon.com right now. I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to, a Love and Lawfare Story in Trumpland. You are going to love this book. You're going to get to know Peter much, much better. You're going to like him the way I like him. He's a great guy. Peter Navarro, thank you, my brother, and God bless you. Good luck with this book.
Sure. Honored to be with you, the great one.
The honor's mine. We'll be right back. We have the man himself, Senator Ted Cruz, with us. It was his questioning almost 5 years ago to the day on the Senate Judiciary Committee that apparently created a problem for Jimmy Comey in terms of telling the truth about leaking or authorizing leaks or knowing about leaks. And his testimony conflicted with McCabe. And we're going to get into this in a moment, Senator. Senator, first of all, thanks for being with us. I want to play you, it's not that long, a clip of an Instagram post that James Comey just put up there in response to these indictments. Let's take a listen, and I'd like your input. Go.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Well, we will have a trial. You know, Senator Cruz, that's pretty precious coming from somebody. I think you got him dead to rights here. Let me have your opinion on what happened 5 years ago and on what he just said.
Well, listen, it's not surprising that Jim Comey gives a statement that is essentially a political speech. Chuck Schumer could have given that speech. Hillary Clinton could have given that speech. What is missing is any reference to the law or the facts or what he did. And he hasn't been indicted for being a Democrat. He hasn't been indicted for being a partisan, although he is clearly a partisan, and he abused the Department of Justice going after Donald Trump. What he's been indicted for is lying to Congress under oath, and he had every opportunity to tell the truth, and I believe he made a conscious decision not to. You know, in December of 2020, I wrote a letter to Attorney General Bill Barr and then FBI Director Chris Wray, and I laid out the facts. I'm just going to walk through the letter because it lays it out systematically. It says, days before the presidential election in 2016, a Wall Street Journal article quoted an anonymous source confirming the existence of a probe into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while serving as Secretary of State, an investigation that up to that point Mr. Comey and the FBI declined to confirm. We now know that this leak was authorized by then Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. Mr. McCabe initially told FBI agents under oath that he did not authorize the leak and did not know who did. But when confronted later with contrary evidence, he confessed both to knowing about and authorizing the leak. We do not know, however, whether and to what extent then FBI Director Comey was aware of and authorized the leak after the fact. Mr. McCabe has repeatedly stated that Mr. Comey knew of and effectively authorized the leak by approving it. He told the Office of the Inspector General that, quote, he and Comey discussed the October 30th Wall Street Journal article in person on October 31st, 2016, and that at the meeting, quote, he told Comey that he had authorized AD/OPA and special counsel to disclose the account. He did not say anything to suggest in any way that it was unauthorized. According to Mr. McCabe, Mr. Comey, quote, did not react negatively, just kind of accepted it and thought it was a good idea that they presented this information to the media. So that's what McCabe said. Mr. Comey, however, has sworn under oath that he neither authorized the leak nor knew of Mr. McCabe's involvement. At a May 27 hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Grassley asked Mr. Comey, Have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters related to the Trump investigation, the Clinton investigation? Mr. Comey replied, never. Senator Grassley then asked, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in a news report about the Trump investigation, the Clinton investigation? He replied, no. And likewise, in 2020, at my questioning, Mr. Comey testified, quote, I stand by the testimony that you summarized that I gave in May of 2017. Here's the simple bottom line. Mr. Comey's statements and Mr. McCabe's statements are irreconcilably contradictory. Either one is telling the truth and one is lying, or the other is telling the truth and the first is lying. And whoever is lying, under oath, it is a federal crime, and that's what Jim Comey's just been indicted for.
You know, you lay it out so beautifully there, and it really is kind of black and white, isn't it? I hear people saying, you know, it's very tough to convict somebody of this. This doesn't look tough to me at all. You got video, you've got audio, you got statements on the record and so forth and so on. I mean, I'm not saying what a jury would do, but how tough is this, Ted Cruz? I mean, it's not complicated.
Look, Comey's only defense that I can see is that McCabe is lying, that McCabe, his deputy, lied repeatedly to the Inspector General, to Congress, and that's possible. Look, McCabe, I think, has been dishonest, so that's his one Hail Mary that he's going to put, I think, all of his efforts into. I don't know what additional evidence DOJ and the FBI has as to which one is telling the truth and which one is lying. I suspect there is additional corroborating evidence to demonstrate that McCabe was telling the truth, because he only admitted to the truth when he was confronted with contradictory evidence. So I don't know what that evidence is, but I think Comey, it's black or white. Either one lied and the other didn't, or the other lied and the first didn't.
Mm-hmm. I noticed the media already, Senator Cruz, are talking about this was done because Donald Trump ordered it. Wasn't it done now because the statute of limitations was running, and also because Biden tried to smother it with a pillow?
Biden had zero interest in seeing Jim Comey held accountable, and unfortunately, there's been a pattern of officials lying to Congress. That is a crime. It is a felony to lie under oath to Congress. And Jim Comey, I think, demonstrated complete arrogance and unwillingness to comply with the law. I think that's why he was indicted. He was not indicted because Donald Trump doesn't like him, although, to be clear, Donald Trump has every reason not to like him, because Jim Comey abused the power of the FBI to target and persecute Donald Trump because he didn't like him. And because he was mad at the American people for electing him. And by the way, remember, this is someone who, as the former director of the FBI, tweeted out 8647, which is, of course, slang for murder the current president of the United States. That is astonishingly partisan and biased behavior from a director of the FBI. That's who Jim Comey is.
This leak was actually very consequential, wasn't it, Senator Cruz? In other words, it was intended to push forward this lie about Russia collusion, which dragged the country into the gutter for 2.5 years. So it was very consequential, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. And listen, I think Jim Comey had delusions of being J. Edgar Hoover. He had delusions of being incredibly consequential. I think he wanted to pick the president of the United States. He wanted to play politics. And when the voters disagreed with him, when the voters elected Donald Trump, he was more than willing to launch investigations, by the way, based on fraudulent evidence. Among other things, an assistant general counsel of the FBI lied to the FISA court, created fraudulent materials for which he's been convicted. That was who was working for Jim Comey, because their attitude it was, I believe, an arrogance and a contempt for the voters, that how dare the voters elect someone we don't approve of. We're the FBI, and we're going to topple the election. And I think that's what Jim Comey is being held accountable for, and specifically for lying to Congress under oath, which is a felony.
And, of course, this is going to be portrayed by the usual suspects as retribution. You know, it's hot. Retribution for what? You don't even believe in retribution if nothing was done about something or it's done against you. But why would it be retribution? In other words, nothing's being concocted here. Nothing is being ordered here that's not in the normal course of order. If somebody lies in front of Congress on a major event, they should be charged.
Of course. Of course, and by the way, this is something that I predicted. As you know, I do a podcast 3 days a week, Verdict with Ted Cruz, and I laid out that there was a great deal of dishonesty by the Department of Justice and the FBI going after Donald Trump in the first administration. A lot of that has been revealed by Tulsi Gabbard and others that have revealed the deliberate dishonesty. And what I laid out on my podcast Verdict is what is most likely to be prosecuted is the testimony from either Andrew McCabe or Jim Comey, because that is most of the conduct that was dishonest falls outside of the statute of limitations. Comey's conduct, the reason this indictment came now is because the statute of limitations expires in just a couple of days, and so they had to bring it now, or else you cannot prosecute the crime.
Last question. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Isn't the real question here, why did the prior Justice Department let this thing float like it did? And why did the prior Justice Department, they did this in a number of cases, go ahead and bring the charges? Well, isn't that the issue, not whether or not the charges were brought right before the end of the statute of limitations?
Yeah, of course, and it's straightforward. This case is not rocket science. You have two directly contradictory testimonies under oath. Both cannot be true. So either Jim Comey committed a felony or Andrew McCabe did. And so it's a simple binary choice of examining the records of the FBI, the evidence of the FBI, and by the way, the current Department of Justice has access to all those records to determine who's telling the truth and who's lying. I assume by the basis of this indictment that the additional evidence corroborates McCabe's story and demonstrates Comey's story is false. And if that's so, then Comey knowingly, willingly committed a felony, and he's now trying to give a political statement to basically say to voters, if you don't like Donald Trump, you should be mad that I'm being prosecuted for committing a felony, because anyone who dislikes Donald Trump should be able to lie to Congress and it should be okay because we are the resistance. And you know what? That is not the law. And I am grateful that we have a Department of Justice and an FBI that are getting back to prosecuting the law regardless of party and holding people to account when they've committed criminal conduct.
Well, excellent job in doing what a senator is supposed to do. And you saw that there was something haywire here. You pursued it. And James Comey is alleged to have lied to you under oath more than once. And he's now been charged with it. And we'll see how this plays out in a court of law. I don't think there's anything complicated about this. Senator Cruz, thank you for your patriotism and all you do. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark. God bless you.
You too. All right, Mr. Producer, I'll do this on the air. Can you pull all that together so we can post it? Because I think the interview with him is very, very important. What do you think? All right. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You never know what's going to happen, do you? From 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, or whatever time it is where you are listening to this program, but we are here to deal with it. And I want to thank Senator Cruz for the way he conducts himself as a senator. I call him Mr. Conservative in the Senate. He definitely is. I think he'd make a great president, too. There's two people that I mentioned tonight, Mr. Producer. And there's others, don't get me wrong. The nation's governor, Governor DeSantis, Mr. Conservative from the Senate, Ted Cruz, and again, there are others. Don't get me wrong. And we will determine who we endorse here, you and me. 14.5 million of you. We will determine that. We will figure that out. In fact, you know what's interesting about this show? We're on so many platforms. I'm sure they undercount our numbers, Mr. Producer. We are on satellite. We don't even know on Sirius XM satellite. It's all over the world. And a lot of people love satellite radio, including me. And then we have our AM affiliates, our FM affiliates. Then we have our own YouTube channel. Our program is adjusted to be treated as a podcast, so we run the program. They edit out some of the radio aspects of it, and we run it as a podcast. What else do we have? The Mark Levin app, the iHeartRadio app. We are everywhere. There's no avoiding me. I'm sorry. No avoiding us. And you folks make it all possible on all these different platforms. I found out the other day, Mr. Producer, we have an immense following on YouTube, and the program is basically, it's the radio show. Did you know this? And there's no video either, because Blaze owns the video, Westwood One does not. We'll fix that. I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to deal with that. We're going to get a good video out of this. There's no video. Who does YouTube without video? Apparently I do, a high wire act. Apparently an awful lot of you listen. And I want to thank you for all you do. Whether it's the books, whether it's radio, whether it's TV, whether it's digital TV, I'm telling you. You folks are fantastic. My interview with Ted Cruz will be online in about an hour or slightly less. If you want to listen to it, if you want to pass it along to a friend, if you want to drive in your car and blast it, whatever. But we need to counter Comey's propaganda and what will be the media propaganda. That's what we're going to do. Man, I've been sneezing to the truth all night here, ladies and gentlemen. Most of all, I want to thank all of you. I love you, my radio family. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, our men and women, all of you in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel. And by the way, that would include Judea and Samaria. And all of you, the great American people. Thanks to each and every one of you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hang tight. God bless.